All right, this is the NFL in all its splendor. 8 divisions, 32 teams. I'm going to give it to you real quick. Check this out. NFC East, Skins, Boys, Giants, and Philly. Sleep on this division? Huh, that's silly. Next up, it's the NFC South. Panthers, Birds, Bucks, and Saints. Point them out. Overlook the NFC North? Nice try. Lions, Packs, Vikes, and Bears? Oh my. Check out the NFC West with the Cards, Hawks, Rams, and 49ers. This division is full of defensive grinders. The AFC East, Pats, fans, Jets, and Bills. No D, but guess what? Oh, kills. In the AFC West, it's the Broncos, Raiders, Bolts, and Chiefs. About time somebody stepped up in that division. Good grief. AFC North, Steelers, Ravens, Bengals, and Browns. This division plays some of the best ball in town. In the AFC South, Texans, Titans, Colts, and Jags. Everybody in this division shares the riches and the rags. What 12 teams will find themselves in the playoffs with safe landings? This show helps you figure that out. Division standings. Welcome. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me. This is the Week 15 edition of the Divisional Standings episode. Lot to get to. Lot has changed since the last time we met to talk about divisional standings and what teams are in position to make it to the postseason. Lot has changed, and really, you'd be surprised at who's trending up, who's trending down. Some teams are really in danger of missing the postseason after looking like locks earlier in the season. Let's get to the NFC first. We start in the NFC East, and the Giants, last time we met, had a 2-game lead over everyone else in the division. Since then, that lead has shrunk to 1 game. They are 1 game over the Cowboys and the Redskins in this division. The Giants right now are in first place at 8-5. They're 2-3 in the division. They've got matchups remaining on the road at Atlanta, at Baltimore, and back home for Philadelphia. That's a tough stretch. Philadelphia's playing better of late. The Falcons just lost to the Panthers, so they're mad, and they have something to play for. They got to try to lock up home field throughout in the NFC playoffs, so they don't have time to continue to lose games. They've built a cushion so that loss yesterday, while it hurt the Falcons, they can still win home field throughout with winning 2 out of their last 3 remaining games. So this is a big one for them. So the Giants really got to strap it up because they got 2 tough road tests ahead. And if the Giants win those 2 games and they just have to beat the Eagles, they deserve to be the NFC East champions because that's 2 tough road games back-to-back to close out the season. Then you go back home to take on the Eagles. If they can find a way to beat those 2 teams on the road, Atlanta and Baltimore, consecutive weeks, respectively, they deserve to be NFC East champions. You look at the team right behind them breathing down their neck. It's the Washington Redskins. They were able to get a dramatic come-from-behind victory at home against the Baltimore Ravens, a game they needed desperately. They lost the services of Robert Griffin III in that game. His status is up in the air as to whether he'll be able to play this week against Cleveland. But the Redskins are 7-6. Right now, they have the best divisional record of any team in this division. They're 3-1 on the season in the division. And so they have the inside track of all these teams in the NFC East vying for that title. Dallas, Washington, and New York. They have the inside track because they play the Dallas Cowboys one more time, having already beat the Cowboys. They have a better divisional mark than the Giants. And so if the Giants were to slip and lose 1, maybe 2 games down the stretch, and the Redskins were able to win all of theirs or lose just 1, and they ended up tied with the Giants. If the Redskins were to beat the Cowboys and the Eagles, they would win the NFC East because of a better divisional mark than the Giants, than the Dallas Cowboys. So they would have the edge over the Cowboys and the Giants because of a divisional mark. So if the Redskins went out and the Giants lose 1 game and they finish tied, the Redskins would have the inside track on the New York Giants. So they really control their own destiny in terms of just needing to win out and having the Giants just lose 1 game. Because it's very feasible that the Giants could lose to either Atlanta or Baltimore on the road. And don't sleep on Philadelphia. Even though they've had a down season, they're playing better of late. Nicholas Foles is starting to, come of age right in front of our eyes. He's playing solid football for the Eagles. They were able to go on the road and get a win in Tampa Bay. So you just don't know. It's family business. You don't want to sell anybody short in division, even if they're struggling. So the Giants have a tough go of it. This division is wide open. The Cowboys are 7-6 after they had to come from behind. When they looked dead in the water against the Cincinnati Bengals, were able to really muster up the strength to come back in that football game. They were dealing with a lot of adversity. They were playing with heavy hearts, losing a teammate in a car crash over the weekend, having one of their own players be at the wheel in Josh Brent, taking the life of Jerry Brown Jr. So they had a lot going on mentally, but they were able to put it aside and get a win in Cincinnati in a game that it looked like they were going to lose for about 3.5 quarters. But they were able to come back and get the win 20-19, and so they're 7-6 on the season. They finish up the season home against Pittsburgh, home against New Orleans, back on the road at Washington to finish up the season. So they have some tough games coming up as well, but they're at home for 2 out of the 3. So if they can get it done, find a way to win the rest of their games, they would have a shot in winning this NFC East. This thing is up for grabs, one of the tightest divisional races that we have in the National Football League. There are several, but this one here probably is one of the tighter ones that we have in the National Football League moving forward. You look at the next division that we have up on the slate, it's the NFC West. And this division, you thought it was going to be won by the 49ers. It won easily. And maybe 2-3 weeks ago, this division looked like it was well in hand. 49ers had a firm grasp of this division. The Seahawks had, not struggled, but they weren't playing as good a football as you would have liked to see from them if they wanted a chance to win this division. All of a sudden, the 49ers go through a little quarterback change, they go through a little bit of turmoil, drop some games, tie a game that they have no business tying, lose a game to the Rams they have no business losing, and all of a sudden the Seahawks start playing really good football. They have home games coming up. We know how good and impressive they've looked at home. And all of a sudden this division isn't a runaway anymore. The 49ers currently have a 9-3-1 mark on the season. They're 2-1-1 in the division. Meanwhile, the Seattle Seahawks are 8-5. And they came off of an impressive win at home over the Arizona Cardinals. They absolutely destroyed them 58-0 at home. And so the 49ers were able to get back on the winning track by beating the Miami Dolphins at home. So they're right now essentially a game and a half ahead of these Seattle Seahawks. They have to play these Seahawks one more time, and it's in Seattle. The Seahawks got off to a rough start in this division. They were 0-3 to start the season because they played every divisional game of those first 3 on the road. And so they weren't a good road team to start this season. They're great at home. We know how good the Seahawks have been at home. And so now they have every single member in this division left on the schedule at home. They took care of the Cardinals on Sunday. Now they have the Rams remaining and the 49ers at home. So it's going to be interesting to see how these Seahawks fare at home against divisional opponents. That could tell the story in this division. Meanwhile, the 49ers have a tough stretch. They go to New England next week. They go to Seattle the week thereafter. Then they come back home and finish up with Arizona. So that's a tough stretch. They're going to win that last game against Arizona. They're the worst team in the National Football League right now. So they could conceivably lose their next 2 games. And if they do that and the Seahawks are able to win out, you're going to have yourself a new NFC West champion in the Seattle Seahawks. So this is something worth keeping an eye on. Don't know if it's going to play out that way or not. However, this could be an interesting dynamic developing in the NFC West division. You look at the Seahawks, they're 8-5. And again, right now they're currently sporting a 1-3 mark in the division, but that can all change with a few wins. They have 2 games left in the division, both at home. They haven't lost. They're 6-0 at home this season. So these are big games coming up, and they're at home. Their remaining stretch looks like this. At Buffalo, home for San Francisco, home for St. Louis. They could easily win all 3 of those games. Easily. The toughest game on that schedule left is the San Francisco 49ers, and it's at home. These Seattle Seahawks are sitting pretty right now because all they have to do is win. All they have to do is win, and the 49ers could possibly come right back to them. Boomerang, come right back. So, this NFC West is very, very compelling football right now because you don't know who's going to win this division. Look at the St. Louis Rams, and interestingly enough, they're not out of it yet. They're not going to the postseason. They're not going to the postseason. But I tell you what, Jeff Fisher, wonderful job with this group. They're 6-6-1 right now in the season. They're 4-0-1 in the division. So they haven't lost a game within the division right now. They've been cleaning up in the NFC West. That's a great way to make a statement and make a push for the postseason. Winning games inside the division. And that's what the Rams have done. They've gotten fat off of NFC West competition this season. And they've even beaten the best. They've beaten the 49ers. They've tied the 49ers. They've beaten the Seattle Seahawks. So they've beaten everyone in this division. No one has been immune to losing to these St. Louis Rams. So even though it's a long shot, they have a pulse in the NFC wildcard race. They just have to win out and let the chips fall where they may. But give credit to Jeff Fisher, his first year in St. Louis. He's cleaned up this team. He has them believing that they can win football games. And they are right there in the thick of things in the NFC playoff race. But I tell you what, who expected this Rams team to even be close and remotely close to having a shot in the postseason this season? I mean, 2 weeks ago, they were 4-6-1. They had just lost to the Jets at home. They didn't look like a team that had any ambitions of going to the postseason. 2 weeks later, they've won 2 straight, and now, all of a sudden, they're right there in the thick of things. So we move on to the next division, and I tell you what, of all the divisions in the NFC, this one is probably the most dynamic. There's a lot of things going on, a lot of moving parts in the NFC North right now. It's a very fluid situation in this division. You just don't know what's going to happen. You thought you had a clear picture. You thought you knew exactly what was going on in this division. You have no idea. Everyone in the NFL circles and NFL channels assumed, myself included, that this division had 2 spots locked up in the NFC playoffs. Hands down. Whoever doesn't win the division is getting one of these wild card spots. And we thought the 2 teams in question were going to be the Green Bay Packers, Chicago Bears. They're going to make the postseason. That was the assumption of everyone around the National Football League. All of a sudden now, that's not the case. You can't be sure of that. The Bears are having one of these late season meltdowns like they did last year. This time, there's no excuse for it. Last year, Jay Cutler went down, Matt Forte went down, a slew of injuries. They couldn't stand up to the competition in the NFC. They crumbled under the pressure. They wilted. They didn't make the postseason. This year, Jay Cutler's fine. He's had some issues with, concussions and neck injury. He got injured against the Vikings on Sunday. Nonetheless, Urlacher went down. They still went on the road and laid an egg against the Minnesota Vikings. And so now, this thing is getting muddled in the NFC North because it looked like the Vikings were about to settle in toward the bottom third of that division. We already know the worst team in this division is going to be the Lions. We thought the Vikings were going to settle in right above those lines and not make a push for the postseason. It started to look that way. All of a sudden, the Vikings had an opportunity, and I told the Vikings, if you want to prove that you want to go to the postseason, here's your opportunity. The Bears are in front of you. The Bears are right here. You got them at home. You lost to them a couple weeks back. This is your chance to prove you want a shot at going to the postseason. Got to win. And they responded. 21-14 victory over the Bears. Now, all of a sudden now, the Green Bay Packers are in first place. They win over Detroit on Sunday Night Football. They get the job done. Now they're sitting pretty atop this division. Have a full game lead. Going to Chicago next week to take on the Bears. They win the game against the Bears. For all intents and purposes, they've won the division. Division is sewn up. The Packers would have won this division for the 2nd consecutive season in a row. So big matchup looming next week. Packers, Bears, oldest rivalry in the National Football League, has another chapter opened in that book. We're going to see if the Packers can wrap up this division, or are the Bears not going to lay down and give this division away to the Green Bay Packers. Very interesting dynamic. And then the thing you have to keep in mind is the Minnesota Vikings are right there lurking in the shadows. If these teams are to slip up, the Vikings have not thrown in the towel just yet. You look at the Packers, they're 9-4 in the season, 4-0 in the division. They have Chicago remaining at Chicago, home for Tennessee, back on the road to finish up the season at Minnesota. Tough stretch, 2 out of their last 3 in the division, going to tell the story for the Green Bay Packers this season. You look at the Chicago Bears, they're 8-5. And now, instead of them leading this division, which they've done for the most part of this season, not only are they not leading the division, they're no longer the 5th seed in the NFC. They're the 6th seed. They're clinging to the final spot in the postseason because the Seattle Seahawks beat them 2 weeks ago, are now 8-5 along with the Bears. So they leapfrog and flip-flop with those Bears. They're now the 5th seed are the Seattle Seahawks. The Bears are now the 6th seed. And so they are now clinging to that last playoff spot. They are in danger of not making the postseason, which is remarkable, being that 3 weeks ago, it was no doubt that these Bears were going to the postseason. What a difference a month can make in the National Football League. So you look at the Bears, they're 8-5. They're now 2-2 in the division after dropping that game against Minnesota on Sunday. They have coming up on the schedule, home for Green Bay, at Arizona, at Detroit. They should be able to win 2 out of the last 3, for sure. If they can get all 3 of those, they could possibly win this division. Take the division back from the Packers and go and win this division. Very feasible that that could happen, but they got to strap it up and they got to play better football than they've been playing of late, because these Packers are starting to turn it on at the right time of the season, and they're looking to get back Clay Matthews and Charles Woodson for this game. They could be in trouble. Could the Chicago Bears? You look at the Minnesota Vikings. They're 7-6. Huge win on Sunday over the Chicago Bears. They had to have it. They lose that game, they're done. They win the game, now they're still in it. Wild card race is still a possibility for these Vikings. They're 3-2 in the division. They have remaining games at Seattle, at Houston, back home for Green Bay. They could easily win 2 out of those 3, possibly all 3 of those. They could easily lose all 3 of those games. So you don't know what you're going to get out of these Vikings. The Percy Harvin injury, it stings. It's going to linger, and it's going to affect them in 1 or more of these games because they don't have playmakers on offense. You can't expect Adrian Peterson to be able to carry the load every week. He was able to get it done against the Chicago Bears. But what happens when you come up against a team that's not going to score 14 points, but it's going to put 24, 27 points on the board? Can you keep up with just Adrian Peterson being able to get it done? I don't think they will be able to, but they still have hope. They're 7-6, and they got it done. They're still in the NFC wildcard race, but they are a long shot because their quarterback play is sketchy at best. The next division up in the NFC is the NFC South. In this division, it's a runaway. We already know who's going to win the division. That's already been determined. What we don't know is how these Atlanta Falcons are going to be seeded in the playoffs. They haven't locked up home field throughout, so they're not the #1 seed as of yet. They've played good enough football to be the #1 seed all season long, but they had a slip up, and as we've all seen, they haven't been playing the best of football of late. Over the last month, they've played some average football at best, but again, they've been playing bad football teams, so they've been able to get the win. Wasn't the case on Sunday, however, as family business commenced, and the Carolina Panthers were able to get the job done against these Falcons at home. Now, the Panthers could have easily swept these Falcons this season. They had them on the ropes in Atlanta. They let them get away, but they did not let them off the hook on Sunday, getting a big win versus these Atlanta Falcons. So the Falcons go to 11-2 on the season now. They're 3-2 in the division, and they have a remaining schedule of home for the Giants, at Detroit, home for Tampa Bay. Now, that's not the easiest slate, but again, those are games that they can handle. That Giants game is going to be a big test, going to really give you some insight as to where these Atlanta Falcons are mentally. Going to be a big challenge for them at home. They need to be able to beat the Giants at home if they want to be a serious contender for that #1 spot in the NFC and get that home field advantage and get that first round bye. You look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they're done. This was a team that was on the rise about a month ago. They were 6-4 in the season. Greg Schiano had his bunch playing some really good football, and then they hit a stretch where they started playing good football teams. They got into a funk, and then they couldn't snap out of it when they got a bad team at home. They had a stretch after going 6-4. They had a stretch where they had to play the Falcons at home. They lost that game. They had to go on the road to Denver. They lost that game. Fell to 6-6. Then they needed to snap out of that funk and come back home and take care of a bad Philadelphia Eagles team. Could not do so. Lost on the last play of the game to the Eagles, 23-21. And so now these Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 6-7, 2-2 in their division. Have games in the division finishing up at New Orleans, at Detroit, at Atlanta. So they're done with their home schedule. They're on the road for the rest of the season. They're finished. At 6-7, they're not totally out of this thing mathematically, but they're done. They couldn't afford to lose that game at home to the Philadelphia Eagles. They did, and now they would have to have way too many things happen and go in their favor, plus win all of their remaining games to even have a making the postseason. They are done, and they have no one to blame but themselves playing bad football over the last month. You can't afford to play bad football in the latter stages of a season if you want to have a legitimate shot at making the postseason, and that's what these Bucs have done. You look at the Saints, they came into week 14 with faint hopes of making the postseason. They had to win out. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They didn't have a choice, no margin for error. They had to win out. They lost against the Giants. They're done. We're not even going to discuss the New Orleans Saints, who dropped to 5-8 with that bad loss on the road against the Giants. They're finished, and so we move on to the next conference. That's going to wrap it up for the NFC. We'll come back and talk about the NFC and what the playoff picture looks like in the NFC here in a little bit. Let's get to the AFC conference and talk about what those divisions look like and how that playoff picture is starting to shape up. In the AFC East, things are a lot clearer. In the AFC period, things are a lot clearer. The NFC is way more muddled and cloudy than the AFC. The AFC is a lot clearer. The skies are blue. It's a sunny day because for the most part, we know what's going on in the AFC. The Patriots have won this division already. This division is over. Now they're just looking to seed themselves in the playoffs. They want to get as high a seed as they can possibly get and possibly get their hands on a first-round bye, which is not out of the realm of possibility. They'll need to leapfrog the Baltimore Ravens, having lost to them earlier in the season, but they own the tiebreaker over the Denver Broncos, and so they just have to win football games. That's what it all boils down to. That's what it all amounts to for the New England Patriots. Right now, they're 9-3, haven't played their matchup on Monday Night Football. They have a huge game against the Houston Texans at home. So another big matchup for these Patriots, another test to see where they are in the AFC. They have a lot of big games coming up down the stretch. This game with the Houston Texans is big. They have another game at home next week against San Francisco. Huge matchup. Huge playoff implications in that game. Next game after that at Jacksonville. Then they finish up coming home for Miami. So you look at the Patriots, they're 9-3 on the season, 5-0 in the division. You want to win your division? You want to win your division handily? Sweep your division. And that's what the Patriots have done thus far. 5-0, have one remaining game at home against the Dolphins. They'll probably win that game as well. The Patriots have done what you are supposed to do when you are in a division that is not very good and you are looking to win your division and reign supreme over that division. Win all of your games in the division. Make a statement. That's what the Patriots have done. They're looking to elevate themselves in the AFC playoff picture by winning this game, a huge matchup versus the Texans. The Texans right now are 11-1. If the Patriots can beat them, have the Texans struggle down the stretch, they finish tied with them, and they get this win, they could get the #1 seed in the AFC playoffs. So this is a huge game in the AFC tonight on Monday Night Football between the New England Patriots and the Houston Texans. You look at the Jets. I hate to even say that they still have a pulse in the AFC playoff picture, but I have to. Winning yesterday against Jacksonville, and it's a shame because they keep getting opponents that stink. Teams that they can't help but beat. They're stumbling into wins. This is a bad football team, have no business even being in the discussion of making the postseason, but yet they're 6-7 on the season and they still have a pulse. It's faint, but it's still a pulse nonetheless. They're 6-7, 2-3 in the division. And if you look at their remaining schedule, you'd be hard-pressed to be able to keep them out of the postseason if these other teams that are currently in the playoffs struggle down the stretch, because you look at their upcoming schedule. They just finished beating up on Jacksonville. They eked by the Arizona Cardinals, two of the worst teams in the National Football League. They get Tennessee at Tennessee. They go home for San Diego, and then they're at Buffalo. Three bad teams with losing records on the season. They could conceivably win all three of those games. They don't deserve to go to the postseason. They don't need to have a playoff spot. They're not a good football team. Their quarterback situation is terrible. Their quarterback situation is one of the worst in the league. They don't need to go anywhere. Hopefully, they don't show up in the AFC playoffs. You look at the rest of this division, none of these teams are even on the radar in the AFC. We won't mention them. We'll go on to the next division, the AFC West. So the AFC West is just as clear as the AFC East is. And I told you, it's blue skies in the AFC. Everything is a lot clearer in the AFC. There's a few things that need to be sorted out, a few loose ends that need to be tied up. But for the most part, we know what's going on in the AFC. All it is now is a matter of seeding. Who's going to be where, who's going to have to travel to where, and who's going to get home field throughout, and who's going to get first round buys. That's all we're really sorting out in the AFC. There's one playoff spot up for grabs. We'll get to that later in the AFC discussion. Let's talk about the AFC West, though. This division has already been won by the Denver Broncos. Best team in this division, the only team worth talking about in this division. So this will be very quick. The Denver Broncos are 10-3 on the season, 5-0 in the division. Much like the Patriots, you want to clean up your division if you're going to reign supreme over that division. This is a bad division. Much like the AFC East is, this is a bad division. And the easiest way to win your division when you play in a bad division is to clean up. Get fat off of the competition in that division. The Denver Broncos have done just that this season. They have remaining on their schedule at Baltimore, home for Cleveland, home for Kansas City. They should be able to win 2 out of 3 of those, if not all 3. The Ravens are struggling right now, losers of 2 straight. So they could conceivably win all 3 of those games, get to 13-3 on the season, to 13-3. You cannot deny this Denver Broncos team a first-round bye and possibly, potentially, home field throughout. 13 is a huge number in the National Football League. That will be a huge number in the AFC. They get to 13-3. Look out for these Denver Broncos being one of the top 2 seeds in the AFC conference. The rest of this division stinks. No one else is in the playoff discussion. You could argue that San Diego has an outside shot. I won't even discuss the Chargers. They're not a good football team. They don't need to go anywhere. And with them already having 8 losses, I won't even discuss them, even though they're probably not even mathematically eliminated yet. They're done in my eyes, and I'm going to move on to the next division in the AFC, which is the AFC North. Now, this is one of those divisions, much like the NFC North, that everyone assumed when the season started, and as it progressed, that 2 teams out of this division was going to make the playoffs. Last year, they had 3 teams make the postseason from this division. So you knew this was a powerhouse division coming into the season. You assumed that the Ravens and the Steelers, who are perennial playoff participants, they're triple Ps, they were going to make the postseason. Of late, that's turned into somewhat of a question mark. These Steelers, with that injury to Ben Roethlisberger, had their season turned upside down. A month ago, before the Roethlisberger injury, they were poised and primed to make the postseason. Ben Roethlisberger gets injured, enter Byron Leftwich. Byron Leftwich gets injured, enter Charlie Batch. Then things start going downhill. You lose to the Ravens, you lose to the Browns, and all of a sudden, everyone's starting to catch up with you in the AFC playoff wildcard chase. No longer is the division an option for these Steelers. Now they're just trying to cling to a playoff spot, a wildcard berth in the AFC. Losses like the one they had on Sunday to the San Diego Chargers, at home nonetheless, is devastating to their playoff chances. You can't lose to teams like the Chargers at home and demand a playoff spot. You don't get to call your shots when you lose at home to the San Diego Chargers. So now, what the Steelers have done is basically set up a scenario where they don't have a margin for error. You've got teams breathing down their neck all of a sudden that weren't even in the rearview mirror a few weeks ago, like the Jets, who are terrible. But now, because you can't get it done at home against the Chargers, you've allowed teams to come back who have no reason even being mentioned in playoff discussions. Let's talk about this division. The Baltimore Ravens have dropped 2 straight for the first time since 2009. Unbelievable stat. After a loss, they've been 15-0 over the last 3 seasons. Remarkable feat that they have accomplished. But now that's over with. That's done. They lost to the Redskins on Sunday for their 2nd consecutive loss after losing to the Pittsburgh Steelers a week ago. And so now they're 9-4 in the season. They're going to win this division still. Because the 2 teams behind them, they don't want to win this division either. So by default, these Baltimore Ravens will win this division. At 9-4, 4-1 in this division, they've been the best team in this division all season long. So they need to be the ones who win this division. Looking at their remaining schedule, they're home for Denver, home for the Giants, at Cincinnati. That's a tough stretch of football. Really tough stretch of football. The saving grace for them is these two next games against really good quality opponents are at home. That counts for something. Maybe they'll be able to shake out of this funk. But I tell you what, if they struggle down the stretch and lose 2 out of their remaining 3 games and get to 10-6 on the season, that can open the door for some of these teams in this division. Now, I don't think anyone will run the table and finish at 10-6 with these Ravens, but you just never know. You never know what the situation may entail. You never know what the rest of this regular season may bring. So if you're the Ravens, you need to get back to winning ways. Win at least 2 out of these 3 to ensure you of winning this division and possibly putting yourself in a position to get a first-round bye. That's not out of the realm of possibility right now, but that loss to Washington on Sunday hurt your chances greatly because now you're behind the Denver Broncos. You could be behind the New England Patriots. You're already behind the Houston Texans, and so that loss on Sunday hurt. It stung, but you can dig yourself up out of that hole by winning games down the stretch. You could still get a first-round bye. You could still get home field. Who knows? If the Texans are the #1 seed and they fall, you could get home field throughout. So if you're the Baltimore Ravens, just win football games. That's the name of the game for you down the stretch. Just win games. They're getting healthier. They're going to get Ed Reed back. Terrell Suggs will probably be back here in the next few weeks. They need to start playing better football. You look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, they're 7-6. That loss on Sunday, detrimental to their playoff hopes. You can't lose to bad teams at home down the stretch. Not an option. And they went and did it. They had a chance to really put a stranglehold on that 6th playoff spot in the AFC as the Cincinnati Bengals fell to the Dallas Cowboys. We'll talk about the Bengals here in a second. They had a chance to distance themselves from everyone else. Instead, they allowed the pack to come closer. They allowed the Jets to get a game closer. They allowed these Bengals to not fall behind them. They're still tied. The Steelers are in dire straits right now. Roethlisberger came back, did not look that well. And he'll get better as the weeks go on. He was rusty. But this team has a lot of issues right now, bubbling under the surface. They don't clean them up, they won't go to the postseason this year. You look at their record. They're 7-6. They're 2-2 in the division. They have a remaining schedule of at Dallas, home for Cincinnati, home for Cleveland. They should be able to win 2 out of those 3, possibly all 3, depending on what they do going to Dallas this week. They should be able to win home against Cleveland, home against Cincinnati. But the way they've been playing football of late, nothing's guaranteed to these Pittsburgh Steelers. You look at the Cincinnati Bengals. They're 7-6. They had a golden opportunity to leapfrog these Steelers and get into the postseason as the #6 seed and control their destiny down the stretch. Instead, they left it to chance. Now they have to win and hope that someone else can get the Steelers and clip their wings. And of course, they do play the Steelers. So in essence, they still control their own fate to a certain extent. But they really had a chance to be in the driver's seat for that playoff spot. Instead, they let a 9-point lead go by the wayside down the stretch, lose to the Cowboys 20-19. Now they're 7-6 on the season. They're 1-3 in the division. It's going to be tough because they're at Philly, they're at Pittsburgh, and then they finish up the season home against Baltimore. That's a tough stretch. 2 out of the 3 against teams that you struggle with in a division. That game against Philly is at Philly, so you got to go on the road and beat a team that just won a game and are feeling good for the first time in about 10 weeks. So it's going to be a tough stretch for the Bengals. You made it that much harder on yourself by not winning that game that you had in the bag against the Cowboys at home on Sunday. This division is by far the most interesting in the AFC. There's no other division that's up for grabs like this division. No other division really jockeying for 2 or 3 spots in the postseason like this AFC North division. You look at the last and final division in the AFC, it's the AFC South. This division is the definition of a 2-man race. It's between 2 teams. The other 2 teams in this division flat out stink. So this is a 2-man race between the Houston Texans, who have dominated and reigned supreme over this division all season long, and the Indianapolis Colts, who refuse to lose. They don't always play the prettiest of football, But at the end of the game, you look up at the scoreboard, and the Indianapolis Colts have more points than their opponent. Don't know how they do it with the amount of turnovers that they have every week, but they find a way to get it done. They're 9-4 in the season. The Texans are 11-1. And these two teams haven't met this season. So this is going to make for some good football down the stretch in this division. The Texans have played the best football of any team in the AFC all season long. They've been the most consistent. Yet they're the only team in this conference that hasn't really locked up their division. And the reason that is because the team behind them, the Indianapolis Colts, have been playing good football and they haven't played them yet. So going to be interesting down the stretch to see how this division shakes out. Again, the Texans have a huge matchup on Monday Night Football against the New England Patriots. They're able to win that game. They've pretty much locked up this division. They're not able to win this game and fall to 11-2. Now the door is open for the Indianapolis Colts to somehow steal this division because they have 2 games remaining with this Houston Texans team. If they were to sweep those games, they'd be in the driver's seat. So nothing is out of the realm of possibility here. Long shot for the Colts to win this division, but they've already locked themselves in the postseason. Have the Indianapolis Colts. With 9 wins, with 3 to go, all they have to do is win one more game, and they're in the playoffs. At 9 wins already with 3 to go, you've already basically all but assured yourself a trip to the postseason. And so the Colts have had a remarkable season thus far, and it's not over yet because they could still win the AFC South division. You talk about the Texans. They're 11-1, again, pending their matchup against the New England Patriots tonight. We don't know whether they'll be 12-1 or 11-2 moving forward, but right now they're 11-1. They're 4-0 in the division, much like the Denver Broncos and the New England Patriots. You want to win your division, the easiest way to do so when you're playing a bad division is to get fat off of that division and really take it to the other teams in that division and be dominant. And that's what the Houston Texans have done to this point. 4-0 on the season. Haven't played the Colts yet, so we'll see how far that dominance reaches in this division. But they have a remaining schedule of at New England on Monday Night Football tonight, home for Indianapolis, home for Minnesota, finish up the season at Indy. So we'll see if that last game of the season means anything. Because if they beat Indy at home, take care of the Vikings before then, or even this New England team on Monday Night Football on the road, if they take care of one of those games in conjunction with the Indianapolis Colts that first go around at home, they've won this division. This division is over. So these games down the stretch are huge for the Texans because not only are they looking to sew up this division, which they'll probably end up doing here shortly, but they haven't locked up home field advantage in the AFC. They could struggle down the stretch, and they could go from the best team in the AFC all season long to a team that doesn't even get a first-round bye. I mean, the seeding in the AFC is so fickle right now because if you drop 2 straight and the Patriots and the Broncos continue to win, all of a sudden, you're looking up at the Denver Broncos and the New England Patriots. Now, you've beaten the Broncos, so if you finish tied with them, you have the tiebreaker. But if you lose to the Patriots tonight, they're on the tiebreaker over you. So this is a big matchup. Huge matchup. You've beaten the Baltimore Ravens already this season, so you own the tiebreaker over them. So really, if you're the Houston Texans, this game means a lot in terms of trying to get home field throughout and making sure you lock up a first-round bye. You win this game against New England, you'll assure yourself of at least a first-round bye. Then you have to start looking toward getting home field throughout. Then you have to worry about contending with Denver. And just winning games will do that because you've already beaten the Denver Broncos this season. Huge matchups moving forward for the Houston Texans. You look at the Indianapolis Colts, they're 9-4. Coming off of a win, come from behind win against the Tennessee Titans at home on Sunday. Now they're 3-1 in the division. The remaining games look like this. At Houston, at Kansas City, home for Houston. They should be able to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. Even though it's on the road, they should be able to take care of the Chiefs. Those 2 games against Houston are huge. That's going to be a litmus test for this Indianapolis Colts team. How good are you? The best team in your division is coming to town. You have to go to them. What are you going to do in those 2 games? Are you going to get beat up soundly? Or are you going to show up and show this team that, hey, you may get us, but we're not that far behind you? Or are you going to beat this team? Are you going to rise to the occasion and try and win this division? A lot of questions to be answered for the Colts. One that's already been answered is, Yeah, they're going to the postseason. That question has been answered. They're going to the postseason this season. Are the Indianapolis Colts. Okay, this is the playoff standings as of Monday in each conference. This is what it looks like if the playoffs were to start as of Monday. This is the end of Week 14. We're going into Week 15. However, there's one game left to be played. The Patriots and the Houston Texans will complete Week 14 for us, and then we can move into Week 15. But as of Monday, and again, we still have two teams who haven't played to complete Week 14 yet. But as of Monday, this is what the playoff picture looks like. And really, this game really has no impact on the AFC landscape in terms of, you know, a team being in or out of the postseason. This is just for seeding purposes only. Those two teams, they're going to the playoffs this year. The Patriots and the Texans are both going to the playoffs. The Texans haven't won their division, but they've already clinched a playoff spot. The Patriots have already clinched their division. So both of these teams are in the postseason already. So this game really doesn't impact anything else. Those two are just looking for seeding. And that's what that game is going to mean in the AFC. So let's talk about what's going on in the NFC right now. You look at the NFC. I want you to take a look at all the teams that are in the red. If you are in red, that means that you are a division winner as of right now. Haven't clinched. This doesn't mean you clinched the division, because in the NFC, no one has clinched their division other than the Atlanta Falcons. Everyone else in the NFC has a division that's up for grabs. Again, just as I've said many times, the AFC is much clearer. It's a sunny day. You can look up, see the clouds. It's a blue sky. You know a lot more of what's going on in the AFC than you do in the NFC. NFC, it's dark, it's cloudy, it's convoluted. You don't know what is what quite yet. Nothing has been decided like in the AFC. In the NFC, there's a lot left to be decided. You know, you have 2 or 3 teams that are in right now that could be out of the postseason in 3 weeks. So let's talk about the NFC. All the teams in the red are division leaders as of right now. If the playoffs started today, your 1 seed would be the Atlanta Falcons. So they would have a bye and home field throughout. Your 2 seed would be the San Francisco 49ers. Your 3 seed would be the Green Bay Packers. And your 4 seed would be the New York Giants. All of them would be division winners. The Falcons and the 49ers would be your 2 bye-week participants, or your 2 bye-week teams in the wild card week. They would not play in the first week of the playoffs. The 2 teams that would be hosting games in wild card weekend would be the Green Bay Packers and the New York Giants. Now, the 5th and 6th seed right now in the NFC is indicated by the yellow you see on the left side of your screen, which is the Seattle Seahawks, who would be your 5th seed right now, and the Chicago Bears, who would be your 6th seed right now. So if the playoffs started today, the Green Bay Packers would be hosting the Chicago Bears, and the New York Giants would be hosting the Seattle Seahawks. Now, what's interesting in the NFC is there's a lot of pink left. You look at those pink teams in the NFC side, and you'll notice that all of them are teams that are still in the hunt. They still have a shot. Some better than others. Nonetheless, they're not mathematically eliminated in the NFC. You look at the Redskins and the Cowboys, they're both 7 and 6. They both have a shot at still winning their division. They're both right there behind the Chicago Bears for that last and final spot in the wild card. And so you're looking at 2 teams that they really want to win their division. That's what their sole focus is right now, winning the division. They want in the playoffs at all costs. They'll take a wild card, they'll take the division, but they would prefer to get a home playoff game and win the division. You look at the NFC West, the Seattle Seahawks look poised and primed to make the postseason. Now, they could still lose their last 3 games, go to 8-8, and not make the postseason. Highly unlikely that that occurs. They'll probably be one of the 6 teams that make it to the postseason in the NFC. The San Francisco 49ers, they're not out of the woods yet. This Seahawks team can still win the division. They have one more matchup due to Seahawks with the San Francisco 49ers. And so this division is up for grabs. These 49ers not only have to play the Seahawks in Seattle, but they still have to go to New England next week. So they could conceivably lose 2 out of their last 3 the Seahawks could win all 3 of their final games, win the division. So that division is still up for grabs. But for the most part, those 2 teams are probably going to go to the postseason. Can't say that about the NFC East, as probably only 1 team, maybe 2 at the most, will make it out of that division. If the Giants don't win that division, and let's say they finish the season 10-6, but they don't win the division, they'll probably still get in as a wild card. That'll probably be the only scenario where 2 teams make it out of the NFC. Of course, the Bears could fall flat on their face. They're right now in a nosedive. But it's not complete. If they beat the Packers on Sunday, this is a huge matchup within the NFC North. They beat the Packers on Sunday. They're right back in that divisional race, are the Chicago Bears. They lose that game against the Packers. The Green Bay Packers are your 2012 NFC North division champions because they own the tiebreaker over the Bears. Having already beat them once, they beat them again. They'll sweep them, and they'll win the tiebreaker. So the Bears not only need to win that game to keep their hopes of winning the division alive, they need to win that game to get into the postseason, because if they lose this game, go to 8-6, say the Redskins beat the Browns, say the Cowboys beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, say the Minnesota Vikings beat the St. Louis Rams, and everyone's 8-6. Now the Bears are in some trouble because the Redskins right now would hold the tiebreaker over the Chicago Bears. The Minnesota Vikings would hold the tiebreaker over the Chicago Bears. And the only team they will hold the tiebreaker over is the Dallas Cowboys because they beat them head-to-head. But they would put themselves in a very precarious situation if they're not able to beat the Packers at home at Soldier Field on Sunday. That's a huge matchup moving forward. So there are scenarios where 2 teams could make it out the NFC East. The Bears could go to 8-6 and falter down the stretch. The Redskins or the Cowboys could, win out or win 2 out of their last 3, finish at 9-7, finish at 10-6, and get in as a wild card. The Giants could still win the division, and 2 teams could come out of it that way. But the only way I really see 2 teams coming out of the division of the NFC East is one of 2 ways. The Giants don't win the division, but they still go 10-6. And they lose the division to, say, the Redskins or the Cowboys and finish 10-6. 2 teams finish 10-6 in the NFC East. And the Bears finish 9-7 or 8-8 and don't make it. That's one way. The other way is the Bears just fall flat on their face. The Giants hold on to the NFC East, and one of the other members of the NFC East finish better than the Bears and get in. That's the only way I see it going down. You look at the other team in that division in the NFC North, and the Minnesota Vikings, they still have a shot. That win over Chicago was huge, puts them at 7-6 on the season, gives them a shot. It's still a long shot because they played the Redskins this year. They lost. So the Redskins own the tiebreaker over them. They're still 1 game behind the Bears, so they need the Bears to lose. So they need help. They need someone to take care of the Redskins for them so that they can finish 1 game better. They need someone to take care of the Bears for them so that they can finish at least tie with the Bears. So they need help. But they're still in it. But they'll need to probably win out to even have a chance to get in the postseason. You look at the Rams. Mathematically, they're not eliminated, but at 6-1, they need a ton of help. They need a ton of help to get in. But stranger things have happened. They still have a shot. But they're one of the teams you just highlight because they're not mathematically eliminated, but they're not going to make the postseason. The Rams still have to go to Seattle. I can't see them winning on the road against Seattle. They have a home game against the Vikings. They may lose that game. I can't see the St. Louis Rams winning the rest of their games, winning out and getting to 9-6-1 on the season. I just don't see it happening. You also look at the Atlanta Falcons. They've clinched their division. They're going to be one of the top 2 seeds in the NFC. They have an absolute unequivocal meltdown down the stretch. They'll lock up one of the 2 byes, which meaning first or second seed in the NFC. They'll lock up one of the 2 byes for the wild card weekend. Their sole focus should be getting home field throughout. They've earned it. They've worked hard to get to this point all season long by stockpiling wins. Now's not the time to start losing games and surrender the cushion that you've built to give yourself home field throughout in the NFC playoffs. they need to go ahead and win 2 out of their final 3 to ensure that they'll get home field throughout and be the #1 seed overall in the NFC. Tampa Bay Buccaneers are still alive, but that loss against the Eagles on Sunday, crushing, they're done. I only highlighted them out of the respect of saying that they still aren't mathematically eliminated, but they're done. 6-7. They needed to go 10-6. 9-7 probably won't get it done. The Bucs have lost to the Cowboys and the Redskins, and so they don't own the tiebreaker over either of these teams. So they would need the Redskins and Cowboys to finish at 8-8 for them to get in. I don't see that happening. I don't see the Cowboys and the Redskins falling apart down the stretch and not winning at least 9 games. The Bucs are done. But for the purpose of this exercise, I left them as a team in pink in the hunt because they're not mathematically eliminated just yet. So that's the NFC picture in a nutshell. You look at the AFC picture, and all of the teams in green are your division leaders as it stands right now. The Houston Texans would be #1. If the playoffs started today, Texans would be your #1 seed in the AFC, followed by the Denver Broncos, who would be the #2 seed. The Baltimore Ravens would still be the #3 seed, and the New England Patriots, who haven't played yet, would be your #4 seed. If they win tonight on Monday Night Football, they would leapfrog both the Denver Broncos and Baltimore Ravens and go to the #2 seed. They've already beat the Denver Broncos this season, and they will have a better record if they win than the Baltimore Ravens, who fell on Sunday to the Redskins. And so 10-3 will make them better than the Ravens, who are 9-4, and they have the tiebreaker over the Denver Broncos, who they've already beaten this season thus far. So Patriots would be your #2 seed in the AFC if they are able to get the win tonight against the Texans. You look at the yellow teams on the AFC side, those are your wild cards right now. As it stands, the Colts, you can go ahead and bag the Colts as a playoff participant. Go ahead and tag them as a team that will make it. In the AFC, as I've already stated, you know 5 of the teams. 5 of the teams in the AFC are locked in. Now, the Colts haven't secured a playoff spot yet. Officially, they're not in. But I'm telling you, they're officially in. They've already got 9 wins. They're not going to self-destruct down the stretch and not win another game. They could lose to the Texans twice, but they have the Chiefs. They'll beat the Chiefs. They'll win 10 games. They're getting in. Also, you have to keep in mind that the teams behind them are struggling. The Jets aren't a good team. They're struggling. They won't win 9 games. The Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cincinnati Bengals are both teams that aren't playing their best football right now. They need to win out just to assure themselves of having a legitimate shot of getting in. And so winning out would put them at 10 wins. Both of these teams can't win out because they play each other, do the Pittsburgh Steelers and Cincinnati Bengals. So both of them can't win out and get to 10 wins. So just by virtue of that, the Colts are getting in the postseason. So you know 5 of the teams in the AFC already. The 4 division leaders that you see in front of you right now, which are the Texans, the Denver Broncos, Baltimore Ravens, and the New England Patriots. And go ahead and throw the Colts in as a wild card. Those 5 are getting in. That 6th spot in the AFC is the one you need to keep your eyes on because the Steelers had a chance to put a stranglehold on it Sunday. They didn't do so. The Cincinnati Bengals had an opportunity to put themselves in the playoffs, take the Pittsburgh Steelers out. They blew that opportunity. And so both of those teams lost, and they allowed the Jets, the lowly Jets, to still be relevant in this discussion. They shouldn't even be pink. They should be white like the rest of the bad teams on this list. But yet, out of respect for the list and what it entails, I made them pink because they're not mathematically eliminated. But the Jets don't need to go anywhere. They're not going to make the postseason, but they're not dead. And their schedule is so bad down the stretch. You can't take them out of the equation even if you wanted to. I mean, when the Jets were 4-7, everyone stuck a fork in them, and rightfully so, because they're a bad team and they don't need to go anywhere. And the way they were playing, you wouldn't assume that they could win out. But just how bad their schedule was, looking at it, you couldn't help but keep them in the discussion. Talking about Arizona, you're talking, and you can even take it back a week further. They played the Rams. And then you take a look at the Cardinals. They played Jacksonville just this past Sunday. They still got San Diego. They still got Tennessee. They still got Buffalo. All winnable games. So, and really, they're going to falter at some point. One of those three teams is going to leap up and snatch the Jets down, and they won't finish better than 8-8 this season. But they could conceivably win all three of those games, finish up on a 5-game winning streak, and go, 9-7 to finish up the season. But they don't need to go anywhere. Do these Jets. They're a bad football team. They have bad quarterback play. You can't win in the playoffs with bad quarterback play. They won't beat anybody, and if they turn the ball over or try to babysit Mark Sanchez, as they've done the last 2 weeks, they had to even bench him 2 weeks ago against the Cardinals to get a win there. You'll get blown out in these playoffs. They don't need to come, show up, and mess our playoffs up. We want to see good football from all 6 teams, not just 5 out of the 6. They need to stay at home. But looking at the playoff race in the AFC, looking at 2 of the 4 divisions in the AFC, they're locked up. Divisions have already been won. The Patriots have already won the AFC East, and the Denver Broncos have won the AFC West. Now the Ravens, they haven't clinched anything. They haven't clinched the division. They haven't even clinched the playoff spot. Because if they lose all 3 of their games down the stretch, they could be a team on the outside looking in. But they're going to win. They're going to get in to the playoffs. They're not going to self-destruct. And even the teams behind them won't do enough to displace this Baltimore Ravens team. They're going to win that division. They're going to get in. The Ravens are safe. Looking at the Texans, they haven't clinched because the Indianapolis Colts won't allow them to. They haven't played each other yet. Their first matchup will be on Sunday, and so this is a game that could go either way. The Texans are at home. They should be able to beat the Colts because the Colts turned the football over way too much. But you just don't know what to expect. If they are able to beat the Colts, then the Texans will clinch the AFC South division. And all the Ravens need to do is win. Both the Steelers and the Bengals lose. These teams in the AFC North right now, they all lost on Sunday, had opportunities to really do some damage and put themselves in prime position to either make the postseason or elevate their standings in the postseason, and they all failed to do so. And so that's probably the most compelling watch in the AFC, is that AFC North division between the Ravens, Steelers, and Bengals. You look at the AFC South, where the #1 team in the AFC resides, the Houston Texans, and they're going to be one of the teams that probably gets a bye in the AFC. If the playoffs started today, the Texans would be a team that got a bye. They would be a team that has home field throughout the AFC playoffs. Your #2 seed would be the Denver Broncos. Now, again, remember, the Patriots haven't played yet. If they are to win tonight, they would be the #2 seed. They would be the team with the second bye in the wild card weekend. And the Broncos would be your 3 seed instead of your 2 seed. So just keep that in mind. But as of right now, the Broncos are your #2 seed. They would get the second first round bye. The Baltimore Ravens would be your 3rd team. And the 4th seed would be the New England Patriots. The Patriots and the Ravens would be hosting playoff games and wild card weekend against the Steelers and the Colts. The Steelers would be going to Baltimore. The Colts would be going to Foxborough again in a rematch of a game that took place about 4 weeks ago. We saw the outcome of that. So, again, it's imperative that teams win football games, position themselves in a way that they don't have to play a team that maybe they don't want to play. You know the Ravens and the Steelers don't want to play each other in the first round of the playoffs. They don't want to see each other. They beat the hell out of each other throughout the course of the regular season all the time. They don't want to have to see each other this early in the postseason. If they have to play each other, they want to play each other in the AFC Championship game, not in wild card weekend. Even the divisional round, it has to be, even the divisional round, they'll settle for that. But they don't want to see each other first thing right off the bat in the wild card round of the playoffs. So if you're the Ravens, if you're the Steelers, you're trying to win games to assure yourself of not having to go against your arch rival, your nemesis, right off the bat. So the only 2 pink teams that are still in the hunt are the Jets and the Bengals in the AFC, which tells you that there's a lot of clarity in the AFC. You know, there's only really one spot up for grabs, and that's that 6th seed in the AFC. And so, although the Jets are a long shot, they still have a chance. The Bengals are right there at 7-6. They're tied with the Steelers, but the Steelers have beaten the Bengals earlier in the season in Cincinnati. And so these two teams play again. The Bengals will have an opportunity to beat the Steelers and leapfrog them. But really, if you're the Bengals, you got to win out. There's nothing else to talk about. If you're the Bengals, you win out, you go to the postseason. Same for the Steelers. You win out, you go to the postseason. That's the only way to ensure that you make it to the postseason. If either one of those two teams win out, being that they have to play each other, they're going to the postseason. And really, that's where it's at in the AFC. That's how the AFC picture looks right now. And we'll keep track of this as the season wears on. Again, it's a fluid situation. If the Patriots win, guess what? There's a 2 seed. They now have a first-round bye. Now, the Broncos would be your 3 seed. Now, they would be playing the Steelers in a rematch of Wild Card Weekend last season. And now, instead of the Indianapolis Colts going back to Foxborough where they were destroyed just a few weeks ago, they would now take their business to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. So this thing is fluid. If the Texans can't get it done and the Patriots are able to on Monday Night Football, the whole dynamic of seeding changes in the AFC playoffs. So a lot to get to moving forward. Going to keep a close, watchful eye over it. There's a lot of things that could change between now and Week 17. So nothing's etched in stone right now. No one is safe in either conference. You know of the teams that are probably going to go to the postseason. Some teams have already clinched. Some haven't. But for the most part, it's a lot of interchangeable parts right now. So your job, if you're one of the 6 teams that are either in the playoffs or one of the teams on the fringe of the playoffs, your job is to just win. You can't worry about what anyone else is doing because if you don't take care of your own business, you won't go anywhere anyway. So your job is to just win football games. And that's what it's going to boil down to down the stretch in the 2012-2013 season in the National Football League as we continue to look at the playoff standings. And that's going to be an episode for the divisional standings. Week 14 closed out with the conclusion of tonight's game. This is the Week 15 divisional standings episode. You'll see me back here next week as we put a bow on Week 14. Talk about what has occurred in Week 15. And get ready for Week 16 of the National Football League as things will probably be in more flux next week. This time when you see me, teams would have lost, teams would have won, things will be different. We'll come back and talk about it all next week. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Division Standings. Take care. See you next week. What 12 teams will find themselves in the playoffs with safe landings? This show helps you figure that out. Division Standings.